Greetings all, this is Dickie Adams from PocketNow.com, and today we're taking a closer look at the hardware for the LG Revolution from Verizon Wireless. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now the LG Revolution does have a nice big 4.3-inch screen, and I hate to say this, but it's one of the only things that it has going for it at this point since I've used it for a couple of days. The edges here around the casing, while it makes it feel really solid, after it's been resting in your hands for a few minutes, starts to cut into your palms, and up here on the upper edge where you would normally place this against your ear, it's really actually quite sharp there, as you can see, and that was a little exaggerated, but holding it up to your head does put some do some damage around your earlobes there. The smoothed edge here makes it nice to hold in the hand, but it has I can't say that it's really comfortable in even my largest hands compared to other phones that I've used. Other things I've noticed is that this door is a little bit of a pain to get open, although once it's open it works just fine, but it's ready just to come off of there, in my opinion. And it doesn't slide on very well. On this side, I haven't really had a chance to use the HDMI out because I don't really have the cable, and I don't really use that phones for that purpose. But again, it's one of those slider doors or pop-open doors. The volume buttons up and down work just fine, but since I'm used to using Samsung devices, I find myself going over here for the power button and turning the volume up and down. Speaking of volume, the volume levels are pretty good. I found that the speaker phone levels are a little quiet compared to other devices on the market today. The camera is so far so good. We'll talk about more in the actual software review, so we'll come back to that later. Headphone jack is nice and solid, no problems there, although I did run into an issue where I had Bluetooth enabled and then attempted to plug in the headset here, and it tried to still send the audio through the Bluetooth even though that I had turned Bluetooth off and disabled the headset. That required a complete reset to work again. Internal memory, it's really hard to tell in the software, but it does have the 16 gig micro SD card, and it does have an additional 16 gigs of internal memory for storage, which is really nice. That's a good chunk of storage. Battery life is been about average. I'm getting about 7 hours with about 3 to 4 hours of phone calls before it's asking me to charge the device again. That's without any 4G enabled at all. No Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and the brightness set to auto. Speaking of brightness, let's talk about that for a moment. I'm going to just jump into here to something black. Now this is on full bright right now, and as you can see, the blacks aren't really black at all, and it's a little difficult with a device like this, but if we compare it against another device, say the Nexus S 4G from Sprint, you can really see the differences there between the LG and the Nexus. And the black here versus the kind of grayish black here, which causes all of the other images and videos and everything else on the device to look really washed out. Even if it's on auto brightness, this grayness doesn't disappear. When you increase the brightness, it doesn't increase the brightness of the text as much as it just increases the brightness of the screen. In addition, the up here in while the text looks really sharp and easy to read here in this section, up with the smaller text like the clock, and it's difficult to see in this view, and it's not really going to make much sense without actually seeing it. This is seems a little fuzzy, a little blurry, not as easy to read. Once again, compared to other devices, the crispness of this screen is not as good as others. Other things I've noticed is that when I'm touching the screen and trying to navigate through it, oftentimes I'm finding that I have to tap things twice. All that time was just fine. I'm finding that I'm trying to scroll across pages and nothing will happen, or I'll try to tap a button and have to tap the button again in order for it to work. Perhaps I've got a faulty unit, but with the screen brightness being odd, it doesn't really make that much sense. At this point, it's still got some major flaws that I wouldn't live with in a device. Power button on the top is really small. It is easy to hit once you recognize where it is, and it turns off on and off without any problems. I've heard or read some other complaints about folks having issues with lockups. Again, I haven't had anything like that happen with this particular device. Other functionality and features of this phone, it seems to work just fine, but again, it's mostly the awkwardness of the device compared to the Nexus S. Width-wise, they're almost the same with the curved glass. Weight-wise, the LG Revolution actually weighs more than the Sprint Epic 4G does, and it's got a removable keyboard, pop-out keyboard, pardon me. Speed on the LG Revolution is about what you would expect. I mean, things flip back and forth when the screen works. If you don't run into a problem with it locking up as you page through items. We'll come back to more software bits and pieces. Things load fairly quickly. The 3G service from Verizon is very stable. We'll cover more of the software side, the speeds of the LTE and 3G when I get into an LTE area later this week. We'll cover that in the software review. But otherwise, I'm pretty pleased with the performance of it, but it is just a Snapdragon processor. That wraps up our hardware review of the LG Revolution from Verizon. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. Otherwise, thanks for watching.